Hello, everyone, and welcome to For Love and Money with the Lesbian Talk Show. This is Rae, and we're here with part two of A.E Radley's amazing interview about her great Sapphic marketing survey. So we left off last time after a happy rant about fanfiction, and we're going to pick it up right where we left off. It's hard to get some of the younger ones to actually spend money, and I'd be interested. Do you have any age data on your survey?
No, actually, I do. Let me just have a look. Yeah, it's really, really spread. And it is growing a little bit in the younger. But definitely the under 18s, like, nah, it's negligible. The 19 to 29, it grew a tiny bit, but 30 to 39 does grow a little bit as well. But what I found really interesting, actually, I did a question this year, first year I did this question, where I said, do you feel that the women loving women fiction market has changed at all in the last year? And 63% said yes, that there are more books. And interestingly, in that same question, 14% said they were new to the market, which I said it proves the point, really. If 14% of the people can't answer the question because they're new to the market, then obviously it's grown. Which I thought was really interesting, because I do think it's growing. But it's still so hard, because if you could just capture all of those fanfic people and just go, there's a whole genre stuffed full of books from the last 20 years for you, which is growing and growing and growing. I think they'd get something out of it, and obviously we'd get something out of it too.
And lots of them are free and cheap too. They're not all $10 ebooks either.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell them, and sometimes it works.
Yeah, well, I think some of them must have come over. I mean, I know that my readership, there must be people who had no idea that this market existed and came with me into published books. There must be, because how could I possibly have carried on writing unless some of them had come over with me? It wasn't all the existing audience who were reading lesbian fiction. I must have, brought some with me. But yeah, it's hard, because obviously lots of them don't want to read books unless I still have people saying, like, picking up a completely original book of mine and asking which one's which of the pairing I used to write. And I'm like, no, Regina's not in this book. And I still have to say that to some people. They're like, oh, or they read it and they go, oh, that was definitely Regina. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, nothing like her, but they want it to be. So it is hard. But yeah, trying to bring them over. But as you say, there's so much free literature as well that they could get.
There really is. And I think that the market is only going to continue to grow as people migrate over from fanfiction land.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as AO3 and the recently deceased Tumblr, to the Sapphic fiction market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I'm seeing new authors all the time in the Facebook group, the Lesbian Marketing Alliance, where you and I talked. There are new authors coming in all the time, and some of them are coming in from fan fiction. Like, some of them, like, when you look and you think, oh, that's not like a real name, and you look, you think, but it sounds so familiar, and you think, actually, I think you wrote fan fiction. I think I know who you are. So there's lots of people who are sort of, starting by writing fan fiction, realizing, actually, I really enjoy this and I'm quite good at it. Maybe I could make a living out of it. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, I know for a fact that happens, because I have personally shepherded, aside from my own career, 3 other authors to begin writing and publishing their own work as original fiction instead of fan fiction. So
yeah,
a small point of pride for me.
That's fantastic. That really is. I think it's so important as well, because there's so many people who said to me, oh, I don't know how to do what you did. I might just go and do it. Just go and do it. Yeah, I mean, I was approached by a publisher and said, do you? I was approached by a publisher saying, do you want to produce this into a published novel? And I was like, I don't know. I've got a business to run, and I don't know if I could be bothered. And then, like, fast forward like 3-4 years, and I'm like, all in. That's all I want to do now. But at first, I had no desire to be a published author. My wife wanted to kill me. She was like, you've got this opportunity in your hand. And I was like, yeah, but who could be bothered? And now I'm like, okay, yeah, now I get it. I want to do it. But there are so many people who desperately want to do that. And I think this is a huge opportunity for them. I think there's a lot of people who could really benefit from it.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. So I have to ask 2 more important questions before we wrap this amazing conversation up that I've loved having. The first one is the obligatory, what do you do when you have a new release? what marketing strategies are at the top of your list when you press the publish button, since you're an indie author?
Well, with what I do, is changes every single time because am, as you say, I'm a data person. I'm constantly looking at what worked, what didn't, what do I need to do, what didn't I need to do. I used to have an ARC list. Of about 250 people, which sometimes I would send 10 advanced reader copies out. Sometimes I'd send all 250 out. And I actually found it made no difference whatsoever. It absolutely did help me to get reviews, and it definitely helped me at the start of my career. But I'm releasing my 10th, 11th. I don't even know. Above 10 books. So I'm releasing that one coming up. And I don't find that I personally need art copies anymore. I do think other people would, but for me, that doesn't really work. I toyed with having a street team, but it didn't really work for me. I think the most important thing for what I do is a slow launch. I think what we were saying about the 9 a.m. people who get up and just, my book's out and they think they're done. I think the really important thing is to look at your total sort of marketing network, what you've got. So if you've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and an email marketing list, and spread that out over as many days as you can, because that slow and steady launch is what counts most when it comes to the Amazon algorithm. And I'm fully on Amazon. I know lots of people are like, no, I'm wide. But for me, being on Amazon and being in KU, that's what works most for me. That's definitely sort of been the thing that's grown my business, about just looking at how the Amazon algorithm works and trying to tweak it as sort of appropriately as I can. And with that, what Amazon hates is a huge amount of sales and then nothing. But if you can grow those sales, and pre-orders as well, I never use pre-orders because that is another artificial way that works. If you have 200 pre-orders and they all go out on day one, and then you sell 3 books on day 2, Amazon will bounce you up the charts and bounce you straight back down again. Whereas if you have those 200 sales over 4 days and you have 50 on each day, you'll go up the chart and you'll stay up the chart. So for me, it's about kind of tweaking that as much as I can to kind of slowly increase the number of sales I get each day over a several period of days to ensure that I get a good chart position. And then generally by being in a decent chart position, I'll generally stay there, because then you're visible to all the people you can't get to, all the people who are not connected to you on social media, who you don't have their email marketing channels available. So for me, that's the way I work.
Absolutely. I agree with so much of what you said. Even though I'm wide, I think that the Amazon strategy is good and effective for a lot of authors, and I don't think every author has to market the same way.
No, I think that's the really important thing that I like to say to people, because people go, oh, what did you do? Or how do you do that? And it's just like, this works for me. And every time I've written a few blogs on my website about marketing and things like that. And one of the first things I say is, this is what works for me. Your market could be different. Your strategy could be different. And that's the thing. There's no one size fits all. I'd love to be wide. I've tried it a few times. It doesn't quite work for me. When I go wide, KU is about 50 to 60% of my income. And I don't get anywhere near that when I go wide. I lose most of that income, even though I do still sell wide and I'm getting an audience. I've never gotten to the point where I can anywhere near catch up with what I get with KU. So everyone's really different, and I think that's the really important takeaway, is to kind of look at what works and trial and test things as much as possible.
Absolutely. Being a scientist about it, I think, is really fantastic. So can we talk about your upcoming release this month? Can we talk about Second Chances?
So Second Chances is something I was thinking about writing a while ago. So my first book, Flight, basically had a child in it, and loads of people loved it, and they said, oh, you must be a mother. And I was like, no, know nothing about children whatsoever, but apparently I could write children quite well. So for ages I was thinking, I need to get back into that. So this is the story of Hannah Hall and her daughter Rosie. And Rosie is 5 and just starting school. And she's a gifted child. So she's very, very intellectual, very wise beyond her years. And she goes to school. And obviously her new teacher, Miss Spencer, finds out that she's gifted and wants to sort of accelerate her education and help her along the way. But her mother, Hannah, is very, very much against that, because she had a bad childhood, and she knows that sticking out in any way is a real negative thing at school. So all she wants is for Rosie to have a very, very normal childhood, and that's utterly impossible. So obviously there's quite a lot of conflict there.
That is such an absolutely perfect plot for a modern AU, not AU, I'm in fanfiction mode, for a modern romance, because neither side is like 100% right and they both have valid motives, but it establishes this tension.
That's why I think it's really important. They're the books I like the most, when you've just got two people doing their own thing and there's not conflict for conflict's sake. Like, I think a lot of people do the thing where two people have an argument, and I think I read it and I think I could solve this in 2 seconds, or you could solve this by these two people actually talking to each other. I think, the odd misunderstanding, the odd argument's fine, but I think if you just have fundamentally people who are coming up the same place, they both, like these two people, both want the best for this child, but for different reasons they think different things. I think that they become the sort of most endearing plots that you can really relate to, because you can see both people's points of view.
Oh, the 100, how you messed up.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been so much.
Clark and Lexa are the perfect example of that, because they both made completely justifiable but awful decisions. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, you know what's really funny?
I'm not over it.
A quick story. Me and my wife never watched The 100, and our friends kept nagging us, going, "You've got to watch it." And like weeks and months went by, and we never watched it. And then one day we went, you know what? We'll watch it. Fine, we'll watch it. We'll watch it tonight. And we didn't. I can't remember what happened. Something happened, and we didn't watch it. And we thought, oh, we'll watch it the next night. And that was the night that the thing happened. And social media, Tumblr blew up the next day, and we were like, oh, I mean, to use a pun, it was a dodged bullet for us that we didn't get like involved in it.
I was going to make that pun. No fair.
It's so easy to do, but yeah, we were so close. And yeah, I mean, I know the story and I know all about it, because I think you can't be on Tumblr or anything like that and not know everything. We were just like, yeah, this would be perfect for us. But yeah, we literally missed it by a day to actually start in the series from the start. But yeah, we were like, oh, thank goodness.
It's funny though, going back, and I haven't rewatched the series, I just rewatched portions of it, but it's really funny going back though, because the B plots are so bad.
Yeah, it's funny though, isn't it? I mean, that we Once Upon a Time is sort of like my fan fiction, and we watched, like, the first series was amazing, and the second series was okay, and the third series was meh, and then the next series, like, I actually, my wife is stronger than I. She was like, I'm going to watch it to the very bitter end, and I just couldn't. I was beside myself with rage. I'm like, what are they doing? Nothing makes any sense. How are people still writing this? Like, what are they drunk? Like, nothing made any sense. And I was like,
down the Rosolian Isles pathway. It had a great concept and a great start, and then it just
and everything. But you think, how did this get made? Like, my cat could write better than this.
We could write better than that. Why are we not? Oh my gosh. Okay, that's one reason I'm writing books.
And yeah, absolutely. You think I can do better than this?
I'm convinced that 95% of the people in our genre could write better than these people.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I do think. Our genre is definitely growing, and I do think with technology changes, media changes. I mean, I've had people like contact me about turning a couple of my books into films, and I'm a bit like, but who are you? But then I'm like, does it really matter who you are when you've got things like Once Upon a Time, Rosoli Isles on television? Does it matter if this is a person in their basement, because they can probably do better?
You're listening to The Lesbian Talk Show. TheLesbianTalkShow.com, your hub of podcast information.
I have to ask, because that's what I'm trying to do at the moment, is break into like a little more screenwriting. How did you get those offers?
They just emailed me out the blue. I had two different people email me out the blue. One for my Christmas story that was recently released, and one for Bring Holly Home. And then Bring Holly Home was out start last year, January last year. So yeah, people just emailed me out of the blue, which I was, when you think, my first result is always like, is this fraud? But no, they were just genuine people who were like, oh, we'd love to convert this into a movie. And I was a bit like, well, but the fundraising is the thing. There's a huge amount of money that you have to raise, or you can get grants. And it's about applying for grants and things like that. So that's sort of things I'm investigating this year, sort of half-heartedly investigating, because it's obviously a massive long process.
It's a barrier to entry. I mean, cisgender white men are the ones with the money, so they're the ones paying to get their stories made.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. But haven't you noticed though? There's been so much more women loving women representation in general. It's like it's becoming a bit cool, a bit popular. So I do think we're coming up to that bridge now where people are going to be like, please tell me it's got a lesbian in it because that makes money. I think we're kind of getting there.
I hope so. It's just when they do a bad job, then I get annoyed. But
yeah, same. Yeah, that's why I'm like, yeah, please publish my book. please convert a book of actually someone in this industry who we have heard of, who actually writes properly, not just someone who, had a bit of a bash at it and is no good.
I wish. Okay, so when back to books, when do Second Chances come out?
I haven't actually decided. It's probably going to be towards the end of this month. I've recently come back from holiday, and my sister-in-law is visiting today for a week, and that means I'm not going to be working for about a month, which I don't remember the last time I had even a week off. But yeah, I'm probably looking at around probably Friday the 22nd, to be honest.
Okay, great. Well, I will add all the links to the relevant stuff in the show notes. By the time this podcast comes out, the book will definitely be out, I hope.
Yeah.
So I'm super, super excited to share all of this great knowledge you've imparted to me with all of my listeners. It's so fantastic. I'm really excited. This was a great conversation to have at 9 a.m.
Yeah, I am sorry about that. I don't know how you're taking all this in. Do you think you'll listen to it back several times?
Well, I'm not going to edit it today. I'm going to edit it in a few days when I'm more awake.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much information from these surveys. And I mean, I'm always a bit careful to say, these surveys, they do come from the same pool of people. They're people who either know me or know people who know me, generally from people who are on social media. So there's that whole wide world out there, that questionable, how do we get hold of you? Those people who, aren't on social media, don't give their email addresses, don't interact with us in any way. There's that whole world. I don't know what they're thinking. But this is...
I don't know if they know what they're thinking.
No, but come on, get on social media, for God's sake. Connect to me. I can send you stuff. You might win a free book. Come on. But there's all these people. We don't know what they think. So this is quite a small pool of data, but I still think it's a very helpful pool of data.
It really, really is.
I love listening to your podcast, as I say, because it's just like, actually someone's talking about like making money and stuff. It's like the other day, someone asked about contracts, and they were going to sign up to a publisher with a 10-year contract with the rights for their next book. The next 3 books automatically go into that publisher. I was like, no.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
But because people don't talk about it, nobody knows. And it's such a shame. And I think we've got to be more. I mean, I talk about sales figures. I talk about how much money I've made. I talk about the contracts I had, and that the fact that I'm independent, and, how that works, and taxation. I talk about that because I think if people don't, then certain people are going to get into bad situations. I know people who are in contracts they wish they'd never got into. It's such a shame.
It really, really is. So just to touch on that real quick before I say goodbye, what do you think? Do you have any data on the average length of a contract?
From what I hear, it's about 5 years.
I was going to say 3 to 5.
Yeah, well, I think people, and the other thing is people don't know that contracts are negotiable. When you get a contract from a publishing house, you can turn around and go, nah, and nah. I mean, the worst they can do is go, no, it will be this. You should question it. I know that there was a publishing house that was sort of saying 7 years, and someone got it negotiated down to 4, which is, for my liking, still 4 too many, but, at least. And I think you have to be careful as well. What is that publisher giving you? What are they doing, and how much money are they going to make for doing it? If you actually...
Yeah, are they earning their percent?
Yeah, especially if you're doing all the marketing. I mean, obviously they do have a massive database to go into and to, go, hey, this person's book's out. But, do they leverage that marketing list very well for you? They ask you to do a load of marketing. How much are you doing? How much are they doing? And a lot of our publishing houses use other authors as editors and proofreaders. And sometimes those people are really good. They know exactly what they're doing. I know some authors who are fantastic developmental editors. I also know some authors who are being used as proofreaders who probably shouldn't be. So, you've got to know what you're paying for. And you are, when you sign a contract with a publishing house, you are technically paying them to do a job.
Yeah, you are. And just a caveat, I have to say, if you are an indie publisher, not you, but like you, plural, all the listeners, if you are an indie publisher, writer, if you are an indie writer, you have to hire a good editor. You have to. And you have to pay them. It is non-negotiable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the problems with our market. I think that's why people complain about editing and people complain about indie authors. And it's the bane of my existence, because the indie authors who I work with, they have professional editors. My editor's a New York publishing house editor. She's not cheap and she's very good and she knows what she's doing. She's published many books, edited many books. And I would never, ever ask people to pay for one of my books unless it's been through a professional editor and a really good proofreader. I just think that's wrong to kind of go, oh, I've boshed this thing together and I'm going to sell it on Amazon as a professionally published book. Well, it's not. If it's not going to be edited and proofread, then it's not. And I think it's so important. And you can destroy your career if you release a book and it's full of errors. You'll get a reputation and people won't want to read your book anymore. Whereas if you have a well-oiled product that people look at and go, yeah, this is what I wanted, this is a, well-edited, well-constructed story, then your audience will grow. So you're not doing yourself any favors by saving money. I know editing is expensive, but it's worth the cost.
Find a good editor, pay them their worth in gold.
Absolutely.
You have to.
Yeah. I mean, my editor is, I often think about that. I think like my editor is in part responsible for a lot of my success in my career. Without her, I wouldn't be so successful. So, they're a partnership. It's, it's someone who, you need to find someone who's good and you need to pay them a fair wage.
And you have to find someone that you can talk to and negotiate with.
Definitely.
Geez, I'm going to have you back just to talk about this subject alone.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah.
Find a good editor, pay them their worth in gold, and find one that will consider. My editor considers Lucky 7, which is one of my recent releases, to be their godchild.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you want them to buy into things as well. I mean, I had like an educational period. Like my editor is not from this genre, so I had to sort of explain to her a little bit more about like the woman loving women fiction market and explain, the kind of things, tropes are good, and people, there must be happy ever after, and there must be this and there must be that, the things that people expect, and to kind of say like, yeah, I know that show don't tell and things like that, but a lot of my audience is either from fan fiction or, is predisposed to liking that style of writing. So sometimes, I would go off piste from what a New York editor might say, but these things I'm right on. But then she'll turn around to me and say, yeah, these things you cannot do. So I'll be like, okay. And we negotiate.
Well, if you break the rules deliberately, it's different than not knowing them.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a difference between breaking the rules and being completely ignorant of them. And I think that's something that people really need to know about, because people are like, rules schmoles. I'm like, no.
Same thing with sentence structure, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to know. I mean, I do break editing rules because I know them and I know that I can break them. But if there's any occasion, I mean, plenty of times when my editor or my proofreader even comes back to me and says, oh, you've said this, especially as an English speaker, like a, United Kingdom English speaker, there's many things that I say, and they'll go, no one will know what that means in America. So I have to have that balance, especially if it's an English speaking character. I have to have that balance of actually saying like, well, that is how we would say it. She is English. I'm sorry. American people will just have to learn. And, they do. It's fine. But then there's times when it's not in dialogue and they're like, no one will know what this means. And I'm like, oh, that I have to change then.
Wow, this was so great. Thank you so very much for being on the show with me, for talking about all this stuff that nobody wants to talk about. I am
welcome.
Really excited for your new release coming up this month, Second Chances. I will buy it because it seems to position two characters at odds in a way that I find very, I don't want to say charming, but I'm going to use that word, charming. Compelling. That's a good word. Compelling.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, we're going to have to stay friends after this. This was great.
Absolutely.
Thank
definitely.
you so much.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Lesbian Talk Show with Rae D. Magden, where we interviewed A.E. Radley about her amazing books. about data, sifting through data, learning all you can from it, about indie versus traditional. I can't even list all the things we talked about. Fan fiction. If you want to continue the very long conversation, you can go to the Lesbian Talk Show's Facebook group and discuss their episodes. Also, please check out the Lesbian Talk Show's Patreon, where you can support us and hear exclusive clips you won't find anywhere else. Thank you and have a great week.